Yo, welcome to the Left Rush Podcast. Happy Saturday, happy Valentine's Day. Hope everyone is enjoying their weekend or, your Valentine's Day festivities, or if you're just rolling solo, doing your own thing, or, just another day for you all. Welcome to the Left Rush Podcast. Glad you could jump on with us. I want to encourage you all to subscribe, like, comment, share. Like I said, I appreciate you all jumping on with me this 9 o'clock evening, PM on the Eastern time. Hope everyone's enjoying this Saturday evening. I was just watching some of the All Star festivities myself, but um, got a great hip hop episode lined up for you all. Glad you all can jump on again. Like I said, I'm not going to delay you all. Let's jump right into it. Like I said, it's Valentine's Day. A lot of love in the air and everything like that. Um, Kind of lands on a hip hop episode and kind of wonder, oh wow, hip hop and love, and you know, typically when you think of music genre around the concept of love, it's usually going to be R&B. You kind of gravitate more towards that, even though hip hop and R&B have always been intertwined um, all throughout history of each other. Since hip hop's arrived, it's always kind of had a little bit of R&B mixed in there, intertwined, sampling, all that different stuff like that. And like I said, usually when we talk about love and love songs and everything, you're gonna gravitate towards R&B, especially if you're in a romantic mood or trying to set the mood and everything like that. Usually trying to, throw in some R&B, some Luther Vandross or some R. Kelly or some, whatever it is you listen to, Chris Brown, whatever's your R&B go to. But hip hop has made that foray into the love concept all throughout history as well. We've seen a lot of tries, a lot of successes when it comes to songs for the ladies, love songs, and everything like that with the hip hop. A lot of times had an assist through R&B as well. Usually had an R&B artist featured on there, or hip hop artist featured on an R&B song or anything like that. But on that note, I'm gonna dive into the attempts of hip hop love songs. Kind of the irony of it is that a lot of artists don't necessarily make a successful foray into the love song category. And then there's some that wear like a custom made glove and made it their own lane, and carved out their own legacy through them. And we'll get into the the pros and cons, the benefits and drawbacks of making that venture from into the hip hop love category. But to start it off, I'm just gonna go through a quick timeline of some of the most notable hip hop love songs on this fine Saturday Valentine's Day evening. And before I go into that, like I said, I'm Left Fresh. You can follow me on Instagram at This Is Left Fresh. You can follow me on Twitter, on X as well. This is Left Fresh. TikTok, This Is Left Fresh, same handle on all social media platforms. So, but without further ado, I'm gonna start the timeline of notable love songs in hip hop. What better one in the middle of the 80s? One of the most featured love song gurus of hip hop, LL Cool J, I Need Love. When I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall. You know, LL was one of the originators of jumping into the love song lane of hip hop, and then rode that lane all the way into extending his legacy through it. You know what I mean? And he's had a whole bunch of other love songs since then as well. But yeah, that I Need Love is probably, and when you go back into the archives and the classics of hip hop love songs, that's probably one of the blueprints of hip hop love songs. So yeah, definitely, getting the ball rolling on the timeline. You definitely kind of go back to LL Cool J. It may have been some other artists who may have tried a love song, but yeah, I Need Love is probably the original go-to love song of hip hop. You know what I mean? Back in the 80s, LL Big Rope Chains, definitely was kind of got the ball rolling when it comes to conversion into the softer, sentimental love song lane of hip hop. Um, Another notable hip hop song jumping into the 90s on the timeline is Method Man and Mary J. Blige, You're All I Need to Get By. It was a sample of remake of Ashford and Simpson, and Method Man put his hip hop twist to it, Mary J. Soulful hooks. Definitely a good mix of hip hop and R&B. It was predominantly a hip hop song, and like I said, a lot of hip hop love songs usually have a assist from an R&B artist, or you know provide that soulful singing touch, especially if the artist themselves, the hip hop artist, is typically not a vocalist. So, getting that assist from an R&B angle definitely kind of adds that touch that it needs to get into that lane of the ladies concept of songs. So definitely around that mid 90s point, that was the pivotal love song of hip hop was You're All I Need with Method Man and Mary J. Blige. Also towards the late 90s, around 1998, you also had in that 90s as well. You had Mace with Total, with Tell Me What You Want. Mace, when he was in his bad boy tenure, he was another artist that didn't mind venturing into the slower love song type of love type of songs. Having a ladies song for the ladies on his albums and jumping on features with Brandy and Mariah Carey and different artists like that. Mace was, in the short span of his hip hop run, he was quick to jump into that lane of the ladies songs too to rise up the charts and get a lot of notoriety from it. DMX as well. How's it going down? That was a good love song that was authentic to DMX. He was more of, God rest his soul, he was more of a gangster rap, hardcore. So his version of a love song would kind of have more of a hood dude type of twist to it and everything like that. But he still showed a more, I guess, sentimental side of himself. And how he interacts with ladies and everything like that. And he had Faith Evans singing the hook. That was another hip hop song that needed an assist of an R&B artist to kind of really bring that dynamic together. So that was another late 90s hip hop R&B mix to make a love song in hip hop. So definitely was um, a big, that was kind of the theme of the 90s after, LL set the standard in the 80s and then it came in the 90s had the hip hop and the R&B artist collabo. Definitely those type of key pivotal songs of the 90s for love songs. Also like the 2000s, that's kind of when you seen like a transition or shift kind of um hip hop artists started becoming more melodic become more vocalists and kind of sang their lyrics a little bit like melodic rap started to take hold in the 2000s and kind of just evolved into further along the timeline. But starting it off, it was definitely in the 2000s. You had the Ja Rule effect, the 50 Cent, and got the artists that can actually sing their own hooks and everything. You had the Nellies who can do the melodic rap as well. Him and Kelly Rowland, that was another pivotal love song of the 2000s. Dilemma, Nelly with Kelly Rowland, that was a big hip hop love song right there. Um, you had Fabulous with Tamia, Into You. We had Plies with T Pain and Shawty. You Make Me Better, Fabulous. Another one who had a whole bunch of barrage of songs for the ladies as well, especially in the 2000s. Ti's, Lil Wayne's. A lot of artists that you really got to make that transition into the mainstream limelight. You got to kind of have that song for the ladies. Yeah, absolutely. Unshackled. R. Kelly was, that gift that you get, if you're trying to make that transition into a lady song and everything, going back to Biggie and R. Kelly, going back to Jay-Z and R. Kelly and everything like that. Kelly was, blessing a lot of hip hop artists with some great R&B features to, drive those love songs home and everything like that. Cassidy and Hotel with R. Kelly, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, Kelly was everywhere. And in the modern day generation, in the modern day era, you got Chris Brown. Whenever you need a feature or a song for the ladies and everything, you got Chris Brown. Like I said, further on, you got Future and Drake. A lot of melodic rap in the 2010s. A lot of that is better for the lane of love songs and everything like that. You get these artists that can, the little Uzi Verts and the younger artists. A lot of people don't really like the auto tune or quote unquote they call it mumble rap, but a lot of those songs actually are melodic and got a good sonic sound to it. So, for songs that for ladies to get into, that's where it kind of serves its purpose. T Pain was also great on features as well. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Yeah. Fabulous is one of those ones when it comes to ladies songs and everything like that. Like I said, Drake, like Drake, love Drake or not, he's another one that rode that lane to the wave crash. You know what I mean? Like even now, he still makes songs for the ladies. Going back to Marvin's Room, all the way to now with 21 Savage, Wait for You. Drake all throughout his career has, part of his streaming success has come from a lot of lady songs. He's even completely sang all together. You know what I mean? Like he's almost kind of like an R&B and a hip hop artist put into one. So, doing the love songs for him was an easy transition. Like I said, I mean, it was the ball set in place back in the 2000s. Like when you had Nelly and Dilemma, you had Ja Rule with Lil Mo, you had, even Ti. He started off a little more machismo with the lady songs, and then softened it up so you can have whatever you like. Lil Wayne, How to Love. You start seeing those artists really start going completely melodic rap or sing rap, whatever you want to call it, to do the ladies songs and everything like that. So then you had also, like I said, now you got Future now as well. You got it's almost common theme now. It's almost commonplace in hip hop now to have artists that do more melodic singing, melodic rap. Especially, and it's an easier transition for lady songs. Even the younger artists, the NBA young boys and everything like that. When they do songs for the ladies, they're breaking out the auto tune, or they, pretty much doing the melodic rap at that point. Little Baby, you know, he'll rap and you'll hear his voice, but then he'll do the melodic rap. Young Thug as well. They all kind of do the get into the more melodic rap when it comes to songs for ladies and everything. So, it was kind of the ball that was kind of put in place from the 80s, and it just evolved, the ladies songs throughout the decade. Throughout the decades. Like I said, from the 80s, it was just kind of rapping on the old boom bap beats. In the 90s, you just get the R&B features. In the 2000s, the artist becomes more melodic, and the 2010s is just like second nature. You know what I mean? So, the evolution of hip hop transcended through love songs as well. Like I said, while we were on Valentine's Day, it was a good time to bring up that theme. Like I said, I'm gonna go back through the notable love songs from "I Need Love" by L. Cool J, "You're All I Need" with Method Man and Mary, "Tell Me What You Want" with Mason Total, "How's It Going Down" DMX with Faith Evans, "Fabulous" "Into You" with Tamia, you know, Nelly and Kelly Rowland, "Dilemma," Shawty, you know, Plies, T Pain, Marvin's Room, Drake, Future, with Rihanna. You know what I mean? Like, all throughout hip hop history, there's been those forays into, lady friendly songs centered around women. And, you've seen the change and adaptations and evolution throughout history. So, those are like some of the key songs throughout hip hop history that were, geared towards the ladies. Now we're looking at who are the key artists. There are certain artists that are particularly known for delivering when it comes to tracks for the ladies. We've had almost every artist do it. I mean, Jay Z's up there with the best of them, of course. Mace is up. Mace was up there during his heyday. Your Ti's and Lil Wayne's, they know how to do it as well. Um, DMX, like I said, he even crossed over to have some women's songs for the ladies as well. But there are particular artists that I would probably put like a Mount Rushmore of ladies song artists that make really good chick songs. You know what I mean? And it's like I already got them kind of lined up. So the first one I'm gonna go with is Fab. Fabulous has a long array of songs for the women, going all the way back to the early 2000s. I mean, his first mainstream look at Fabulous was a feature on Lil Mo's song Superwoman. I don't know if you remember the video. He had the napkin tied around his head like a bandana and everything. This was like 2000, 2001 action. But yeah, that was the first time Fabulous was like a mixtape artist doing local mixtapes, and then but he got on a lot of his popularity through songs for the ladies. You know what I mean? And when he dropped his first album, he had "Take You Home" with Lil Mo. You know what I mean? He had a couple of songs for the ladies on there, and of course, when he got to Street Dreams, he also had "Can't Let You Go" with Lil Mo. Lil Mo was his go-to at that point. You know what I mean? Like that's his cousin and everything like that. But yeah, getting on tracks with her, with her singing ability and her vocals, that was kind of what got Fabulous in the door. And then once he got in the door, he just almost every album he was good for one. He had "Baby" with Mike Shorey. Mike Shorey, I don't know if you remember him, but he was an R&B vocalist that would sing a lot of his songs, that would sing on a lot of his tracks for the ladies and everything. He had "Make Me Better" with Neo. Um, that he had You Be Killing Them, you know, even songs later on into his career, he always delivers on a song for the ladies. He's had features with Chris Brown. He had Lil Brown. I mean Chris Brown features as well. Yeah, Fabulous all throughout his long career has had songs that's for the ladies and has hit all throughout his career. So even like people don't really pinpoint a particular Fabulous album. They can locate a bunch of singles that were getting a lot of radio play, getting a lot of spins because he had the songs that women can get into. So Fab always kind of had a touch when it came to songs about women, and for him, that's kind of like my first entry on a Mount Rushmore of lady song artists. So that's Fab, of course. And he also doesn't really get the credit for being a great lyricist that he is because of his reputation for women's song being first and foremost. But yeah, we'll get into that later. Um, the next participant on the ladies' song Mount Rushmore, Ja Rule. Yeah, Ja Rule. During his time, yeah, like the East Coast Nate Dogg. Yeah, Ja Rule was another one who kind of like he made his songs for the ladies. He made that one song for the ladies, and it got big, and it just kind of just took off from there. You know what I mean? Like he was kind of just one song after the other after that, because like he did the "Put It On Me" with Lil Mo, the "Put It On Me" remix, and it was like 80 something weeks at number one on the top of the countdowns on 106 in Park, everything you name it. I mean, Ja Rule was all over the billboards for his songs with women on there. And he was another one that was a benefactor of Lil Mo. Lil Mo would jump on his tracks and take it to another level. And then also Ashanti as well, always on time. You know, he's always kind of he had Thug Lovin' with Bobby Brown, you know what I mean? Mesmerized with Ashanti. I mean, Ashanti was his go-to, Lil Mo, Vita, Ja Rule was always kind of linked up with the female artists of vocalists. Yeah, where would I be without you? Exactly. You know what I mean? Ja Rule was definitely to me easily was a Mount Rushmore hip hop artist of ladies songs. You know what I mean? Like he was the one that took that lane and rode it to the top. You know what I mean? Up until till the eventual fall off from grace. But yeah, Fabulous, Ja Rule. When it comes to those two right there, when it comes to making songs for the ladies, there is almost very few people that can actually stand toe to toe with them when it comes to their ability to just get on tracks and make hits that women can listen to nonstop over and over and over again. And as far as hip hop artists, yeah, they carved a crazy lane for themselves. Like I said, Ja Rule will always be kind of remembered for those songs more than anything else. So yeah, he's definitely a Mount Rushmore of lady songs artist. Next entrant, this person right here in the 2010s. I mean, he became Mr. Lady Song at one point. I mean, at this point, I mean, you can't miss with him. Like I said, he kind of blend his vocals in with his rapping ability, and it usually turns into a song. Especially when it comes for the ladies, it's going to be usually a banger. It's almost a can't miss. And it's Drake. Yeah, Drake. One thing he's going to do, he's going to kind of he'll even go borderline completely singing. You know what I mean? Like you know, just come home, just hold on, coming home. He basically sang on that one. You know what I mean? And then we had Marvin's Room. Another song for the ladies and everything that's pretty much iconicized in this era. Um, he's had almost every song he's pretty much jumped on. She Will, songs for the ladies, Wednesday night, Preach with Party Next Door. I mean, he's done collabos with almost everybody. Like I said, he doesn't really even need too many R&B singers. He's his own R&B singer. You know what I mean? And it's like he can sing his own hooks. He can sing most of the song. He gets with Future a lot of times as well. He can do a lot of different things, as far as, versatility, in order to make a song for the ladies. And he's kind of another one who's kind of all throughout his career, he's had a song for the ladies on almost every album, several songs for ladies on every album. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's kind of hard to put anyone else in front of him except for maybe, of course, for one other person. I mean, he had an album called Certified Lover Boy. You know what I mean? Like he yeah, he's so nasally, but he can make a good song for sure. Yeah, I mean, one thing about Drake, he's gonna harmonize. He's gonna, I mean, he went on the song with No Guidance with Chris Brown, and he was singing right along with Chris Brown. I mean, he does a little rap, he does the rap parts as well, but I mean, he kind of makes his own song basically. Like I said, he doesn't really need an R&B feature. You know what I mean? He can sing his own hooks. I mean, he jumps on other artists' song and sings the hook with for them. You know what I mean? So it's like Drake is kind of the rap and the R&B feature on a hip hop song for ladies and everything. And for that matter, I mean, he's obviously got to be Mount Rushmore on one of these four spots. I mean, there's only one artist I could think of that's even in the same room as him, and that's the other last entrant on Mount Rushmore, LL. LL towards the later portion of his career became Mr. Lady Song. You know what I mean? He like I said, from I Need Love all the way down, he's good for he's always good for one. You know what I mean? Around the Way Girl, you know what I mean? Even from Pink Cookies in a Plastic Bag, Hey Lover, you know, yeah, LL definitely always keeps keeps a lady song. He's gonna keep a lady song on deck. You know what I mean? Um, he's also had, yeah, he's had several. I mean, he on Paradise, Anne Marie, Love You Better. You know, LL is going to have like another one, just kind of like with Drake. He's going to have his songs for the ladies on there. He's going to cater to them. Going to cater to that audience, and those four artists have reaped a lot of benefit and a lot of success throughout their careers based off of those songs and everything like that. Yeah. I, I still don't know whoever called him Big Ellie. We've never found that out. And personally, I don't want to find out whoever called him Big Ellie. But, respect to him, he's carved his lane out for him as far as being one of those artists that can automatically generate a hit for ladies without an even real forced effort. You know what I mean? Those four can naturally make a song for ladies without almost little to no effort involved. Pretty much a lot of artists when they make songs for the ladies, you can pretty much tell that it's almost like forced. You know what I mean? But that also kind of comes with the next point I'm gonna make is gonna come with kind of like a hit to credibility. I think all four of these artists have all kind of, you know, the irony of being able to make songs for the ladies is while it can skyrocket you on the charts. You can climb up billboards, you can win major awards for it. You can probably win, a lot of, generate a lot of streams. You could generate a lot of sales from those songs as well. But a lot of a lot of artists kind of take hit for either oversaturating the market with too many lady songs or just failing to do so and keeping authenticity to it. Um, you can see a lot of these hip hop songs for ladies can really have a big flop or a big miss to it as well, and you kind of have an artist kind of look a little silly and they get mocked for it and everything. Even the four I mentioned on the hip hop Mount Rushmore lady songs have been mocked for, oversaturating the market with too many songs for the ladies. Fabulous, one of the greatest lyricists in hip hop history, literally. One of the best wordplay, one of the best flows. Fabulous is one of the best, bar none, as far as lyrically. But a lot of times you get lost in those discussions because of his reputation to make songs for the ladies, almost too much of an extent. Ja Rule is another one who got mocked for making too many songs for ladies. A lot of, after a certain while, people thought it was kind of corny after a while. L Cool J is another one. He had his infamous battle with Cannabis, who made the line that 99% of his fans wear high heels. Drake got attacked for singing too much as well. So I mean, you know, like that credibility of artists with too many quote unquote chick songs is like you kind of people kind of look at your credibility as an artist, especially when you get a lot of success. Like you sell a lot of records, people are going to analyze those sales. Like, well, yeah, most of the sales came from chick songs and everything like that. So it's kind of used as a way to level off, what the success really means. If it's kind of like used as a yeah. If you make a song for women and it's a hit, I mean, there's no denying you're going to be successful off of it. And then you kind of when you get into these either battles or back and forth with other artists or discussions in hip hop communities about who's better than the other, and people refer to success, people are going to look at people start getting introspective, like, oh well, what about the all these chick songs he made? So, like I said, it's usually a lot of um, kind of back and forth. Like I said, you can't deny the success and the formula of it, but you can also a lot of discussions, it usually gets downplayed a lot as well. So, but that's pretty much, what it is for the love songs and everything like that. I mean, personally, like I said, I think it has a place and it definitely is needed. But like I said, for conversational purposes, it doesn't always, get the right applause in the right context. Before I transition it to the next point, if you're jumping on, thank you all for jumping on. Just want to encourage you all to subscribe, like, comment, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. It's the Left Fresh Podcast, giving y'all your Saturday hip hop episode. Like I said, happy Valentine's Day to those that celebrating, those that just chilling, doing your own thing. That's cool too. But yeah, we just touched on all the great love songs of hip hop, the timeline and the evolution of it. Talked about the benefactors and the drawbacks of making a good love song in hip hop. And like I said, one of the benefactors is if you make the right one, you can even lead to some of the greatest awards. Like I said, chart topping, Billboard sales, even a Grammy. And while we're talking about Grammys, um, how important is a Grammy in hip hop? Is it an end all to be all? I don't think it is at all. Is it just to completely be dismissed? I mean, you can count it as it's an honor, to be recognized. Period. If you make a great piece of work, it's good to be recognized by anything. But is it the end all to be all? I would definitely argue that it isn't. There's definitely more context and nuance to a hip hop artist winning a Grammy. Like I said, a lot of artists get mocked for making too many songs for the ladies that could have that success and actually winning a Grammy. But one of the interesting topics that came up is the Grammys just passed by a couple weeks ago, and Kendrick Lamar won his 20, I want to say 25th, 27th Grammy. I mean, we racked up a bunch of them, which is pretty much the most in hip hop artist history. And salute to him for that because he's made a lot of great albums throughout history, made some classic albums to this day at this point. Um, but then the discussion comes about, and I guess the question of where does Kendrick rank amongst the absolute greatest of all time after racking up the most Grammys ever? And I'll say, well, me personally, I've seen people say, well, yeah, he's got to be the greatest, right? And then I've seen some that say it means nothing, and it's like, and it is an in between point where he's actually up there with the all time greats at this point. He's released enough albums, enough of his albums have hit the quality classic status. There's no denying that. I don't think a Grammy validates that or takes away from it. But at the same time, if a Grammy recognizes you as something, I mean, even at some point, it's like there, even the Grammys even recognize it. It's like, it's a great album, but at the same time, it's not the end all to be all as well. Because like I said, it's an award, it's an acknowledgement, you know. Um, we've seen plenty of great albums win Grammys. We also see plenty of great albums not win Grammys. So that's kind of the context that comes along with it. You also seen, you know, great artists win Grammys. Um, Winning Grammys didn't make them great artists. They were great artists with or without a Grammy, but we've seen them win Grammys. So there's been times where we can actually say the Grammys got it right. But of course, it's the times that the Grammys didn't get it right or completely missed to where we can't put too much emphasis on it. So it's like an in between point where it's like, okay, yeah, the Grammys gets it right. It just it gets it wrong too many times to give it the utmost validation to it. So with this right here, I'm gonna show you a clip that I got from a particular page, and I actually looked it up just to see if it's accurate. And of course, it is. Um, Hip hop artists that have never won a Grammy. Now, I will say right now, some of these names are egregious because as great as they are and they're appreciated and decorated in hip hop culture, I wouldn't say that they would reach the appeal of a Grammy committee. You know what I mean? But there are names up there that are egregious in saying that you would think they were have reached the Grammy committee at some point. You know what I mean? Like I said, I I'm a big, Big L fan. I'm a big Scarface and Mobb Deep fan, but them not winning a Grammy doesn't really so much surprise me. I don't think the content that they make, they don't really have much crossover, Grammy winning material. You know what I mean? So, they can be appreciated in the community of hip hop, but I'm not surprised that the Grammy committee would not acknowledge them either. But there are artists up there, like I said, artists that have kind of checked off the boxes that you would think a Grammy committee would recognize. And these are artists that have never won up there. You know, I understand Tribe Called Quest. They came out during a time that it was a little too early in the Grammy selection process for like that pure hip hop, but they made great music and content that was very radio friendly. So I mean, it was kind of surprising to see them not up there, but at the same time, I'm not really surprised considering the era they came out in. Two names that I think everybody would kind of be at least somewhat shocked by is Tupac and Notorious B.I.G. Um, I know they both, were tragically lost early in their careers. I know not all their songs were mainstream commercial, but I felt like, for Tupac's All Eyes on Me, I could see the legal trouble he got into, probably excluding him from getting the award. However, the album itself was definitely um, with California Love and the popularity of that and, How Do You Want It? You would think those songs would, kind of sway the Grammy committee a little bit. But I mean, like I said, I can see the legal troubles kind of interfering with it, with Tupac's case, but he's yet another legendary artist that has never won a Grammy. And, many people are big fans of Tupac. Many albums of Tupac are revered by the hip hop community. So seeing him up on a list of artists that never won a Grammy, this is kind of why the Grammy doesn't really get much of a second thought when it comes to hip hop discussions. Same thing Notorious B.I.G. One thing about P. Diddy, he was always big on getting songs on the radio, getting commercial appeal. Um, Grammys is kind of what was the goal, you know what I mean? So, for Biggie to not get a Grammy, like I said, in a little bit of time, he's only had two albums, but Life After Death, surprisingly, even after his passing, didn't win one. It's kind of, kind of egregious too. Um, Another name up there, DMX, another one who I'm not too surprised, but at the same time, his popularity was meteoric as well. Surprising that in the same sense, I am surprised that he probably didn't win a Grammy, but at the same time, he didn't have a very long period to really compete with other albums. Kind of had a one shot deal to compete, but another one who was really big, had a lot of commercial appeal, sold a lot of records, you know, didn't win a Grammy. Probably the most surprising name on here is Snoop Dogg. um, Snoop has been commercially recognized all throughout his career, all throughout his career. Snoop has always been commercially recognized, had songs that can cross over with anyone. I mean, he right now he's doing a Monday Night Football countdown intro song. You know, for Snoop to not have ever came away with a Grammy, that's because it's like even if you don't put Snoop in the most legendary rappers album category type of realm, I mean, he's a legendary artist. You know what I mean? He's been, all over every mainstream artist. He's collabed with everybody you can collab with. So, and the longevity that Snoop has been in the game without winning a Grammy, that says a lot as well. So, I mean, when it comes to a lot of these artists, Nicki Minaj is another one. Nicki Minaj was like one of the best, one of the most commercially recognized female artists in the past 10, 15 years. Her albums were heavily revered, and for her to not win an award, winning a Grammy, that's crazy in itself as well. I mean, I felt like if there was any, I felt and looking at this list, honestly, Nicki Minaj is probably the most surprising name that I don't see. I just felt like her music was so commercial and so, crossover that for her not to come away with a Grammy is actually pretty surprising to me as well. But yeah, a lot of these names are very much revered and loved in the hip hop community. Um, a lot of these names wasn't ever close to a Grammy. Yet a lot of these artists are still considered legendary and still contributed classic albums. So, we like I said, it's part of the discussion is like, do the very best artists win Grammys or do the very best albums win Grammys? Not always the case. Not always the case at all. Because now we talked about the artists that didn't win Grammys. Well, look at the albums who didn't win Grammys. Look at the artists that won Grammys and look at their albums that didn't win Grammys. Yeah, I'm gonna repeat that. The artists that actually won Grammys. All right, if you're still, under the guys that Grammys, speak volumes. Well, I mean, think about the artists that won Grammys, and then think about their best albums, and that the fact that they didn't win Grammys, that speaks volumes as well. Like Jay Z. Jay-Z now has the second most Grammys out of hip hop artists, but yet many would debate that his best album was Reasonable Doubt. Didn't even win close to a Grammy. We can go into I want to say Blueprint. Blueprint. A lot of those albums. Hard Knock Life Volume Two. That was the Grammy winning album. But yeah, Blueprint won. A lot of Jay Z made a lot of great albums that did not win Grammys. A lot of his work came from singles. You know what I mean, or came from collabos or work with other albums. And not one person on the Grammy committee can rap not one track lyric of any Kendrick or any other rappers. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is kind of like they just hear the noise of the album and they kind of decide which album is making the most noise rather than actually, which album is really the most quality. They kind of just go off hey, this album's getting a lot of recognition. This album right here is getting a lot of noise. So we're gonna roll with this one. Albums like that, which is why I'm not surprised that an album like Reasonable Doubt didn't get it because Jay Z didn't have any noise at that time. The same thing for Nas, who just won a Grammy. Illmatic is still considered Nas's greatest album, still considered one of the greatest albums in hip hop. But at the time Nas came out, there was no real commercial appeal, especially in an era that had still had Snoop at his peak, it had Biggie at his peak, you know, Outkast at their peak, and everything like that. Coming out at their peak, Nas, dropped Illmatic at a time where people weren't expecting Illmatic, and you know, the Grammys didn't catch it. There's a lot of times the Grammys didn't catch it, and it's like that's kind of the point is that more times than not the Grammys doesn't get it right. So this is kind of like one of those points. Um, Another great album that did not win a Grammy, and this is a group that can always rack up a Grammy. Outkast. This is debated as one of Outkast's greatest albums, along with another one, but didn't win a Grammy. You know, people, we're talking about a committee, like I said, that's pretty reactionary, and they kind of just react to the noise that they hear about an album more so than actually going through and listen to the quality of it and deciding whether that's the greatest work that came out that particular Grammy cycle. So yeah, Outkast is another one. ATLians, another classic album that didn't get a Grammy. And then even more so, Aquemini. Yeah, both of those Outkast albums, no Grammy. Um, a lot of artists that win Grammys, their album that they won wasn't even their best work. Yeah. What's up, Bing? Yeah, Outkast definitely got something to say. You know what I mean? And it's like whether the Grammys heard it or not, this is why, when people say Grammys, people don't put much stock into it. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's times where the Grammys do get it right. I mean, I'm not gonna say, when Nas won for King's Disease, I mean, they got it right. There's times where the Grammy does get it right. So I understand the validation when they do get it right, but there's been too many times where the Grammys got it wrong to where it can hold value as the end all to be all. Another one. Here's an album that went crazy, had crazy numbers, crazy popularity, all the hype, still didn't win the award. 50 Cent, Get Rich or Die Trying. Many consider this a classic. I feel like this was more commercial than anything else. Um, yeah. Yeah, Grammy committee look at who pays the radio station. Yeah, the payola. You know what I mean? So, and that's kind of like, a lot of other facets that come into, commercial success. And I mean, this Get Rich or Die Trying was about as commercially successful as it could get. It went diamond. It still didn't win a Grammy. That speaks volumes right there. I mean, it just, like I said, it's just a prime example of just, regardless of the reason, it's just not getting it right to the point where, you can most people just challenge the entire credibility of the award. You know what I mean? So, yeah, with that said, and then let's look at the one with the most Grammys. Kendrick Lamar. His best album did not win a Grammy. It got robbed by Macklemore. Good Kid, Mad City was absolutely robbed by Macklemore. Um, all of his other albums, they kind of got retroactive reward Grammys because of Good Kid, Mad City getting robbed and almost the public outcry. Like Twitter ripped the Grammys up that night. I don't know if you want to go back to 2012 when it actually happened. Even Macklemore, you know, went public and told Kendrick, "Hey, you should have won the award." That's the kind of extent to where the Grammys gets it wrong to the point where it's like the credibility of it is almost little to none. It's like I said, all you can say really about the Grammys is that sometimes they get it right. You know what I mean? That's pretty much the only logical thing you can actually say about the Grammys is that sometimes they get it right and it gives validity and credibility at that time, and people kind of ride with it like, yeah, 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 this that's right, yeah, he's the goat because he's got the most. No, let's not forget that Poor Kendrick got robbed from his best album. Okay, GNX is a great album, but Good Kid, Mad City is levels above it. All right, To Pimp a Butterfly is levels above it. Damn is above it. I feel like Kendrick's first three albums, I mean, you know, second, third, and fourth album are the big three to him. That's his big three albums. Good Kid, Mad City, To Pimp a Butterfly, and Damn. And the one that probably should have got it the most didn't get it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I would say, you know, when we look at the Grammys, like I said, in conclusion, they get it right. But at the end of the day, when you look back at all the times they got it wrong, you kind of have to look at the actual credibility of it because at this time, you know, you can run with the moment and say, "Oh yeah, 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 this person definitely deserved it. This person definitely deserved it." But at the same time, you got to say, "Well, hold on. How many times did they get it wrong?" When we go back to classic hip hop songs and everything like that, we gotta look at the ones who didn't get the award. You gotta look at the artists that didn't get the award. They never got the award and probably will never have the sound to get the award or the type of appeal to get the award. So yeah, there's a couple biases along with it. There's a reactionary um deciding of it, and that is kind of where how the Grammys is. And I don't put much stock into when someone wins. At times I'm happy when they get it right, but I can't forget the times they got it wrong. So yeah, that's my conclusion on the Grammys. For everyone that just jumped on, thank you all. Like I said, one last subscribe, like, comment, share, tell a friend to tell a friend. You know, um, Definitely appreciate you all jumping on. Like I said, I'm gonna get into the underground renaissance at this point. We're kind of at this point in the conversation where we kind of want to talk about new music that's kind of out, music that's kind of flying under the radar. From a Got an underground hip hop fan base out here that really likes independent artists or artists that are kind of just doing their thing, free of any type of major deal, anything like that. So you know, we had an album that just came out this week that was pretty good, and I like the bars on it, like the production on it. Um, People who don't really follow these two artists that much, I would suggest them for any typical kind of your late 30s, early 40s. You want to hear some old school type of bars and hard beats and samples. I would suggest Ransom and Boldy James. Ransom from Jersey City, Boldy James from Detroit. Nice collaboration. Got some street material in there with some hard soulful production. I liked it when I first heard it. It had it only has like 8 tracks. It's an EP. It's a quick little album, quick little project. But yeah, it was a good solid 8 songs though. I mean, I kind of played it through, nice soulful touch and everything like that as well. Um, there's gonna be more upcoming albums as well. Those looking forward to Larry June and Currency and Alchemist and everything like that. They got some good stuff as well coming out for you. I'm still visiting, albums that came out in 2025. If you caught my first hip hop episode, and I did the review. I was just going back through artists that released music all through 2025 is kind of catch up. I mean, there's so much volume of material. I anticipate another big wave of music coming from a lot of artists. One in particular being Benny the Butcher from Griselda. You're familiar with West Side Gun and Conway the Machine. Benny the Butcher. They used to do a lot of work with Eminem in the mid 2000s. Kind of went on their own towards the late 2000s into the up until now. Released a lot of good material. But yeah, Benny the Butcher. It's kind of been all over the place. Features ever since the beginning of the year. Almost like once a week, he's featured on somebody's project. He's featured on OT the Real, a couple of other artists all throughout the country. Basically, I mean, he's featured everywhere right now. So he's definitely getting busy. Probably got another project coming out. He had Summertime Butch released last year. Um, think he's working on another joint project. Gonna be working with Alchemist again. Alchemist is kind of working with everybody at this point. It's kind of like the underground Renaissance producer. You know what I mean? Designated producer. But yeah, I mean, like I said, Ransom, Boldy James, Rock Marciano, Benny the Butcher, a lot of that for the underground hip hop heads and independent fans of hip hop. Um, you know, is still early in the year. Like I said, he's already got like 6 features already done. You know, anybody who follows hip hop knows that features is kind of the way to build. You know, just jumping on everybody's track, expand your fan base, expand your reach. Your fans get more of you. Um, I've been going through a lot of the catalog, just streaming more and more music of his that just keeps coming out. So definitely looking forward to Benny's next new feature that he jumps on. Like I said, we got Apple Music, got Spotify. Go ahead, search these names up. A lot of great artists, a lot of great music out here. Glad you all can jump on a discussion with me. But that's my time though. I'm gonna make it nice and short because everybody gotta get back to their Valentine's Day festivities. If not, if you're chilling or you're getting ready to go out and head out and everything. Hope you enjoy, stay safe. But yeah, I'll be back at everyone on Wednesday with the sports, following up on sports coverage, discussing the All Star weekend and everything like that. The All Star game is on Sunday. We'll talk about it on Wednesday. I have another great hip hop episode lined up for you all on Saturday, 9 o'clock p.m. You can see me on YouTube. You know, I have another great discussion and topics and everything to go through as well. We'll wrap it up. Like I said, thank you all for jumping on with me. You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, X, same handle. This is Left Fresh. Like I said, go back through, take a look at the episode, the recordings, like, comment, you know, interact and everything like that. I'll have everything else in the YouTube community on the left on the channel. Until then, thank you all. It's the Left Fresh Podcast signing out. See you all on Wednesday. Have a great night.